Alrighty, folks, we are back, and as you can see, I'm joined by Elizabeth.
Hi,
Welcome to
Gary.
the Freedom
Thank
Network,
you.
and by Mike. Welcome to the Freedom
Thank you
Network.
so much.
All right, so let's first, before we get into all this other stuff, let's talk about a better Northbridge for a second.
Sure.
This is something that you started,
Yeah.
right? And you have been quite a vocal phenomenon, I would say, within the town. You've got a lot of things done through that. Give me some of the things that you guys have got accomplished.
So what we've got accomplished, one of our better things that we got accomplished was getting the second CPR Lucas device on the second ambulance in town. We raised $1,000 for our police department. Those proceeds that we got trauma kits for each officer. We raised funds for a bike rack at the middle school. We raised $4,000 for Corporal Dawson Square. So
A lot of
we've
good
done a
stuff.
few things.
And you've done all this outside of government.
Yes.
I mean, this is what it's all about, right? This is what it's all about. I mean, somebody really taking the bull by the horns, not worrying about what everybody says, right? All that kind of stuff, and just making stuff. I want to use a different word, making stuff happen, and that's what you've done. So thank you very much for that. How do you fit into this whole puzzle?
I'd say recently, very recently, I reached out to Elizabeth, seeing all the good work she was doing, and I'm a resident in town. I've been pretty quiet when it comes to the things I would like to see the town do up until now, and seeing everything Elizabeth and A Better Northbridge is about, I just thought it made sense to become involved. And I mean, she was fortunate enough to let me in, which is kind of half the battle these days, is getting an opportunity. And now having that opportunity, I mean, we've stopped the lunch shaming at the schools.
Yeah, what's all that about? Let's talk about that for a quick minute too. Now, I know that I heard somebody, I think, say that didn't happen or something like that at the
Did
meeting.
they?
She just didn't know.
Oh.
It's very recent.
Yeah, it is very
Yeah.
recent. And just to get everybody up to speed, I guess this is how I understand it. You guys
Right.
correct me if I'm
Sure.
wrong, okay?
Go ahead,
Yep.
please.
But you pay for lunch at school, right? I get that, right? We have to pay for lunch at school. We paid too. I paid, I think, 35 cents.
Some
but
kids
there's
get a free lunch.
You know,
Some kids do.
there
and
are
that's
this
great.
free
and
lunches.
that's an awesome thing.
But
that
let's
they
say
get
that
a
your
free lunch.
account runs dry, right? Okay, I'm your parent, all right?
Yep.
So my kid's probably used to this, right? I forget, right? Because I'm a forgetful person. So I forget to charge up the account. So I come through the line and I got my lunch with me, right? And here I am, and I'm coming through with my little tray, and I come to the end and I hit my card, and my card says, sorry, zero balance.
Yep.
What happened?
Or
So
even
the staff will take your hot lunch and throw it in the trash, and they will replace it with a cold cheese sandwich.
Now, and this is factual.
This is factual.
100%. We verified all this stuff before we met with the school superintendent.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to tell you something, folks. I don't believe necessarily, and there's a lot of debate that we can talk about with school lunches. But the reality is, I like to live in the world of reality, is that we have a school lunch program here in the town. And because we have a school lunch program here in the town, people do depend on their kids eating lunch at school. And if they don't send them with a lunch, they need to get the lunch at school. So we talk about, what did you call it, shaming?
It's
Yeah,
it's,
food shaming.
Food
Food
shaming.
shaming.
And it's poor shaming, which is systemic in town, but it's a very easy way for us as residents of the town to decide how we want to treat the people that have the greatest need in town, which
And you-
sometimes they fall through the cracks.
They may, and you don't even have to be poor. I mean, you could just
No.
be my kid.
Yep.
Oh, well, irresponsibility,
you know?
irresponsibility is certainly part of it, but more than that, think about a child that's 8 years old that understands that at a certain time of the month there isn't going to be money there because they know that mom's waiting to get paid, or
Right.
dad's waiting to get paid, and once that $11 in credit runs out, what do? They either don't go up and eat because they know, which is worse because they get nothing. Which the cheese sandwich was a terrible idea. Whosever idea it was. If they're an elected official, they shouldn't be allowed to hold office anymore. But if there's someone who we appointed, we should most certainly remove them because it was a terrible idea. To
The
give someone
cheese
to,
sandwich?
yeah, whosever idea that was,
You know,
it was a terrible,
I mean, at that
terrible
point,
idea.
don't you just have to feed the kid? Just feed the kid.
Think of how you put that
would
lunch
think.
person in a position like that. They didn't make that decision. To
Forget
dump it.
about how
That
do you
poor
put them in
lunch
that
lady
position.
Or lunch man,
you know,
like it's,
see, this is where I get a little bit. This is where I get a little bit crazy, and I'm going to get a
Okay.
little bit of crap for this. I know.
Okay.
But how are you, as the lunch person, okay with saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, Mike, you can't have that.
Well,
let
many
me give
times
you
they
this
do.
instead."
Yes.
You know what? I'm going to tell you something. If
worried
I
about
was
their
the lunch
job. They're
person,
worried about their
I don't
job.
care. I mean, don't you have to have some principles in life?
Some kind of morals. Yeah.
Don't you have
thing.
to? And I'm not trying to bash the person that did this. I get it. Maybe I am bashing it a little bit, but you know
Sure.
what? Reality is, you took I mean, how do you do that in front of other kids? I don't like it. I don't.
It
I
says a
just
lot
don't
for
like
the way
it.
we
So
treat
what
the
are you
poor in
guys
town.
doing about this?
The first thing that we did was, well, the first thing that Elizabeth did was bring it to light. I didn't know about it at all. Elizabeth brought it to my attention, and from there we brought it up at a school committee meeting, and we were met with quite a bit of resistance by, what's his name? Michael Labrasser. We were met with quite a bit of resistance from Mike when we brought this up to his attention.
Really? Now, what was the resistance based on?
It was ill received. I could sense that maybe it wasn't the time or the place to just bring something like that up, perhaps, but it needed to be brought up, and we brought it up during the right comments at the right time, and the school superintendent right away was like, "What's going on?" Right away. But the rest of the room was a little bit caught off guard, I think, because it is a very shocking thing to consider that. This does happen in our schools, in our town. This isn't a million miles away problem. This is right up the street from where you live. So after that, we kind of fell back a bit. We requested a meeting, and we were kind enough the school superintendent was kind enough to take the meeting with us. And we thanked her for that. And during that meeting, she shared with us that there was actually no lunch at all during summer school. If you can imagine that, as bad as we think a child getting turned away for lunch, think about the kids who have the greatest need that struggle trying to go to school, and they have to go to summer school, and now they're in a position where if their parents don't send them with a lunch, they get nothing at all. So she came up with this pilot program that hadn't come together yet, and Elizabeth immediately said we were going to do it, and we're so fortunate to have that opportunity to serve the town.
Well,
and
Elizabeth, do tell, what is this pilot program?
Well, we will hopefully be working with the residents, hopefully raising funds, and we will hopefully be seeking help from the senior centers, churches, restaurants in town to see if we can, get some bag lunches together and feed the students.
And have you raised any money for any of this yet?
For that, no.
Okay.
No, we're trying to get the school lunch program going, and then
link it
we'll
all
start
together.
on
Well,
summer
that's
program.
this is what's great, right? And this is what's really great. I was talking actually with Dan about this. You can agree, you can disagree, politics, all that kind of stuff. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you got to be able to. I mean, look, let's just face it. We haven't agreed on everything
No,
every
and
time.
I think
all the
everyone
way
knows
through,
that, right?
Sure, they do.
We have
But,
argued before.
But that's okay. It's okay
is
because
okay.
you eventually come back down to reality, and you say, you know what? Look, we're all good people, right? We're all trying to, I think, do what we think is best for other people, and I guess at some point you got to just get over it, right?
Right.
You just
Yep.
got to get over it.
Yep.
So I'm happy to see that. Anything else that you have? Is that your main focus right now?
Right
at
now,
ABN?
yes. Yep.
All right, that's great. And you guys have done so many good things. I will thank you on behalf of the town. Not that I speak for the town, but I'll thank you on behalf of the Freedom Network
Thank
for all that you have done for the town, because let me tell you, you've made a difference in a lot of things. A lot of police officers are better equipped because of things that you've done, and so many other things that you've mentioned. So I think that's great.
Thank you.
You want to dive into this town meeting now?
Oh, please, if we could. Just before that, though, if we could take a moment.
Yeah, take a moment.
I wanted to congratulate my partner Elizabeth on accepting the opportunity to start talking about and developing a TV show called A Better Northbridge to Greater Serve the Community. And I also want to take another moment to thank Michael Alden personally for talking with us about what he looks to do, becoming part of the school committee, and obviously both Elizabeth and I think Michael Alden would be great for school committee, and we formally endorse him. And we would like to, we'd love to talk with Mike more on air, maybe with you in the future, something like that.
Yeah,
He's got
bring
a lot
him
of great
on.
ideas.
Yeah, a
you
lot
know,
of
he's
people don't
new
love coming
people in
on the
town.
Freedom
That's
Network,
all
but,
we need.
you
is
know, that's
new.
okay.
A lot of the same people have been in charge in town for a long, long time, and there's nothing wrong with saying we need change.
All right, this meeting to me. All right, let's get us away from the. But I am going to say I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it on air yet, and I would like to see it on air. I don't know why it hasn't. Do we know when it would be aired, or what the deal is with that? Does that?
I'm sure with everything that happened to moderator Gould, and Gould, we do wish him a speedy recovery. Obviously, of
course.
They may not. Who knows? It's not. I'm
But
not in a
how do you
position to know or not
I mean,
know.
how do you
I
not?
agree.
How don't you let the citizens at least see what happened? I mean,
will.
not about that, not about him and
it
his
was-
issues. I don't think he can edit it or anything like that. I mean,
no,
it's
no.
a. It's
It was
a,
very difficult to
yeah,
hear on
I would
this
hate to
challenge.
see anything edited that was town government or any part of government, and it was a little bit difficult to see. But I think that to his credit, He realized that. He said, as I was sitting there, that his words came out of his mouth. I probably shouldn't have come here tonight.
And he was very upset. We could see.
He was, he knew that he didn't have all the control that he wanted to have. So I don't see why we wouldn't air it. I think it should be aired. I'm just going to go out on that. But the other thing that stands out to me, until we got to the marijuana question, right? Why? And I say, where's Plato? Plato, are you out there? Just email me or something, will you please? Why every single thing, I underlined it every time, as you can see in my notes. Unanimous. I mean, is there no debate on the finance committee? Does the finance committee not? You can be divided. It's okay to be divided because there are people in the room that are divided on many issues. Why do you have any opinion on that at all? Why are they always
I do have an opinion. So
Go ahead.
I went to a subcommittee meeting from the school, and they wanted so badly to come together unanimously to pick the builder of the school. It came down to two people, and one person didn't want what the other board wanted, and they really wanted to come together unanimously as a board, which I personally don't agree with. I think that, if you're on a board, everyone's an individual, everyone's opinion matters, so you shouldn't have to agree. That's what brings you together on the board.
Sounds like cronyism to me. I don't know.
I just
but
don't
this guy
like
was getting
it.
a really
I don't
hard
like.
time.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't like
It's
it.
awful.
I
It's
think that
sad.
we should hear that. It shouldn't have to be debated to a point that somebody cedes if that's
No.
and then says, okay, fine, we're all on board then.
Right.
To me, I want to hear it. As a citizen, I want to hear it. You're on the finance committee for a reason. You have an opinion that is very, very, very valid, and I want to hear your opinion because that may change my opinion. That's why the finance committee exists, really, is to check this stuff out.
The most interesting thing I noticed about the finance committee was they were all, their vote was 4-1 on the first question about cannabis, and yet when we took the vote, 2 of them stood up for the nay. So we pulled somebody, and that's great. And it was a great democratic moment to see that
it
what
is
like
good when that
it's
happens. It is good. I got an email comes in from Tom. Tom says, as a trustee of Soldiers Memorial, it is still amazing how Elizabeth was able to get the Corporal Dawson Square built. That's huge, That's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really huge. Tom, thanks for bringing that up. I mean, that's huge when you really think about, what goes on in a town, especially a town like Northbridge, because let's face it, we're a small little town with a teeny little budget.
Yep.
Right, and a very aggressive electorate. Whether you love whatever side they're
impassioned.
on,
They're impassioned.
lot
We
of
have a very
passion out
impassioned
there.
electorate.
And
That
I
is a
think
fair
that's
statement.
great.
It most certainly is.
Yeah, whether you agree or disagree, like I said before, it's it becomes semantics. But getting back to this whole thing, I just have always been. I remember I had talked to somebody about the whole why are they always unanimous,
Right.
and there was just never a good enough reason for it. So as I flipped through this, I circled a couple of things. Let me get your. Everything basically was passing in the beginning. Everything was unanimous. It was a big love fest. Everything was wonderful. First of all, town manager. I looked at that. Personnel, $284,000. Total budget, almost $306,000 for the manager. So it's not just a manager, though.
Right.
It's also the
His assistant.
And his
Secretary.
assistant.
secretary.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Uh,
It's fair to talk
300
about. It's not that they do a great job, and
They
we're very
do.
grateful to the town
And
manager and all his work.
I know what people say. They say to me all the time, well, it's a big job, and in Grafton they pay this, and in this town they
We're
pay
close to
that, and in this
Hopkinton
town they
now.
pay.
With that number, we're getting close to
Folks,
Hopkinton.
you know
and we're
what?
not on the low end of
How
the
about
spectrum
this?
anymore.
I
That's a
don't-
fact.
I don't
That's a
care
fact.
who we're close to.
Right.
This is Northbridge. This is our town.
Yep.
We do things our way. That's
That's-
how we
yes,
should do
absolutely.
it, right?
Absolutely.
Do it our way. Now, I want to attract talent. I will absolutely say that town manager last night was I thought
He knows his
fantastic.
stuff. He knows his stuff. I
He
tripped
was
him up
so
a couple
engaging.
times.
He
but
was
knows his
so
stuff.
engaging though.
He
He was
was.
really engaging. I mean, he made sure he answered the questions of the people. I thought he was articulate. I thought he had good command of what was going on.
He most certainly knew
and-
the upcoming
and-
budget. I was very impressed. I
Yeah,
asked him
he
some very
really did.
specific questions about the budget and about some things that they were looking to do in the future. at the football field, and he knew it down to the dollar. So hats off to the town manager on that. Obviously, that's very impressive.
No, it was, and he's new. See,
which
that's
is-
the whole thing that's great.
New is
Yeah.
great.
It's not like
Isn't
he's been
new great.
right,
What if
it's
we
not
had a
like-
lot of
yeah.
new selectmen and new school committee?
Sure, he
members,
has.
you
It's
know,
not like this guy's been around for
Yeah.
20 years or
Very
something. I mean, he
talented.
just kind of walked right into it. I don't know how long exactly he's been there, but we could talk it in months, couldn't we?
Right, yeah.
Right?
Few months.
So I thought he did a good job. So how about economic development? That was lines 12A and B.
Sure.
$0.
Zero. It's always been zero.
$0.
And to
No
be
money
fair-
in the budget
to be
for
fair to
economic
that,
development?
We've leaned on the BVCC for a long time. Our town has leaned on the Blacksburg Valley Chamber of Commerce, and we're always so grateful to all the work that they do here in town. They helped my business with Small Business Saturday, which we do every year, and we're grateful for that. But sure, Northbridge is a town that talks about being pro-business, and they're certainly pro-Walmart and pro-National Grid. But a small business is actually where like the rubber meets the road, because these are residents and business owners. I speak as one of them, as the owner of CBC Real Estate. I speak as an owner of a business in town.
So
that
you're
is
a real
also
estate guy?
Well, yeah, I own a real estate company and a few other businesses as well, and a building in town. I own 101 Church Street, and it's I don't think that the town is as pro small business as they intend to be.
How do you not fund it? I mean, nothing. I mean, go up to find somebody that maybe has a clue about
Bring in a
businesses, or
consultant.
just has
Sure,
some
bring in a
passion.
consultant.
Spend $5,000. Spend something. I mean, the budget's huge, right? To me, it's huge, right? And that's what I love about Northbridge is that we're all like, how much are we spending as a town? And it's less than every other town. I love that about this town. I really do. But that just really and I don't think I've ever seen a dollar in that spot
Nope.
in the dozen years I've probably lived here in town.
I'm sure Elizabeth is going to do something about that soon, knowing her.
Well, hopefully, right? All right, school department. So the school department has a budget, right? It was $25,289, Wow, that's a lot of money. It's a lot of money.
For
We're
our
giving a little
children.
bit more
For
to the
our
to
children.
the trade schools. I think it's okay. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. When you look at the unfunded mandates and when you look at everything that is asked of the schools, where could you share that? I love when people say, "This is what I love," and I got to get to an email. But wait a minute, I got one that just came in. This is really interesting to me because, we have so much that we have to pay for that we have no choice in.
Right.
We just have to pay for it. And when you look at a school budget for different towns, and it's in this town especially, because I've tried to dissect things. Like I look at this and it gives me, these rough things like personnel and then expenses and that kind of stuff. But I know in the school budget, I can get any number I want. And to me, I think that's pretty transparent. I really like that a lot. I know exactly what they're spending the money on. And I don't really see that there's a lot of waste. People say, well, cut the waste in the town, and then we'll talk about. Listen, folks, the
What
reality is when we talk about the new school, which I want to touch on, but the reality is that the budget isn't as big as what we need to build a new school. If you
Right.
cut the whole budget, you wouldn't have the money for a school to even repair the schools that you have.
While we're talking about the schools, something that was mentioned in comments last night is adding more things to restore the middle school before we end up in the same situation we're in with Bomber
Yes.
and NES.
And that passed.
And all of it passed, but there wasn't nearly enough. There's so much more. We were sitting in an auditorium with broken chairs. Broken chairs.
Right.
This is not that kind of town.
I mean, you do. You have to keep up with the stuff. We can go back and forth, of course, and we're gonna run out of time anyway. But we can continue this conversation, of course, on any show. But what I thought was really interesting was the reality that you can't. There isn't enough. If the pork was 30%, it wouldn't touch the needs that we have. And as I talked about on my last show, we all have to look in the mirror on that. The government has to look in the mirror in that in our town. The citizens have to look in the mirror, okay, on that. All of us have to look in the mirror and say, look, we had some buildings and we kept them up to the necessity we needed to. We got a good grade from the state on how we upkeep
Absolutely.
our stuff, and
A
that
fair
even
statement,
saved
yeah.
us a few bucks. So I think that we're trying to do it within the ramifications and the limitations that we have. But, to me, there isn't that much waste. You can't have more waste than you do budget. Right? You just can't. It's impossible. Let me get a quick statement from NCTV, where we broadcast from on what I was talking about, which was the airing of the. Am I good on all that? Am I good? Okay. On the airing of that, because I didn't know why they weren't airing the thing, or if maybe they were. I just haven't seen it yet, and I'm kind of looking for it. So, statement from NCTV concerning the airing of town meeting from last night. NCTV has been given a directive from Harry Berkowitz in his position as the Cable Advisory Board Chairman. His request was to edit out the portion of the town meeting where Mr. Gould had a health emergency out of respect for our town moderator. NCTV policy is not to edit any public town meeting. NCTV is now looking into the legalities of this request. In the meantime, if someone would like a copy of the meeting, please send an email to info@nctv11.org. Well, you know, I'll tell you something. I am a fan of Harry. I like Harry. I consider him a friend of mine. But I'm going to disagree with you. I think that the people have a right to see what happens in town government, be it good, bad, or ugly. Nothing should be edited, and that thing should be on the air.
And Harry served the town for 43 years. I think he'd want it to be up. I think we should ask him, maybe. That would be a great thing for the town to do first. But I think
I don't know that he has a
years
choice.
of service.
No. I don't
think he'd say no.
I think that it's, you know what, he had a health situation.
He did.
We feel for it. We want him to be better, and we wish him the
the town manager
best.
gave him a standing ovation for 43 years of
absolutely.
service. When that happened, you know,
Absolutely.
again, like it was a serious moment, and I felt
Yes.
very bad for those two gentlemen having that moment together, and at the same time, like, you know, when he paused and took a moment, and the town manager stepped in, and everybody started clapping, it was a good thing,
Yes.
you know, to be thanked like that, and we do obviously wish him well and want him to get better quickly, and at the same time, I don't think he's the type of person that wouldn't want this broadcast at all. I would be very
I don't
surprised.
think
Not that I
so.
know the moderator very
You gotta,
well,
you
but
gotta
I don't
do
think
it.
Mr.
No,
Gold
you
would.
got to do it. And I don't think, and this is where I know I get myself in trouble when I say things like that, but I don't think it really matters who wants or doesn't want it to happen.
You're right.
I
You're
think
right.
that
You're
it's
absolutely right.
town business, and that we have a community channel, and that channel should be used for that reason, and that should be, in my opinion, it should absolutely be out there. I got a long email from somebody about the school, and I know we're running short on time. Laura, I want to read this like you read about, but look, it's very long. I'm gonna try to get to it. I just got to get through a few other things. How about $706,211 in debt service? Mm-hmm. What's with all the debt? We got a lot of debt, evidently.
No, I
We're
disagree with
servicing a lot
that.
of debt.
I disagree
don't
with
know.
that. The town
What are
managers
we
of the
doing?
past were doing very short-term loans.
They
Looking
were.
at the books, a little bit more that you should know is before I went into real estate, I spent 11 years as a banker.
Okay.
Before that, 10 years in the Marines, a little bit different. But
Thanks
again,
for your service.
as a banker, the town manager and I did go back and forth about the type of bond rating we have, and I argued with him about taking an additional $300,000 in free cash and putting it aside for reserves for the health care, which also is important to have those types of reserves to maintain our AA rating on bonds, but most of our bonds are on shorter terms. And one of the important things with the bomber school issue is going to be taking a longer term bond. If we take a longer term bond, it could affect citizens as little as $300-something a month. It depends, and right now money's cheap.
I know it is. We're going to battle about that maybe in a minute. I don't know where I am on that issue yet, but you said something that just makes me mad. It really does. So I gotta say, and it's not that you make me mad. It's
Sure.
the term that makes me mad. This free cash thing. All right, can we stop using the word free cash? There is no free cash. The government has no money. They possess nothing.
What should we call
they
it then?
Make
I'd love to
nothing.
hear this. What should they call
How
it? What
about
should they call it?
how about overage money?
How about money we wasted? How about money we didn't need that
no,
we
I
took
get
anyways?
it. I got it. You ready? I got it. Unallocated funds.
There we
How
go.
about that?
That sounds
How
great,
about
Donna.
that? Does that sound
All right.
better?
Elizabeth's
Don't
gonna
tell
start
me
working
you
on
got
that
this
petition
free
right
cash.
away.
If you have
Right
free
away.
cash,
Got it.
give it back. How's that sound? Give
Sure.
it back. All right. I had to get crazy.
No,
What
it's
do
great.
you want from me?
Well, they give you money
But-
back if you don't have an insurance claim. What if the town had rebates if we actually did a good job? Back to the, how crazy would that be if we started to be so good with our money, like a good business, that we had money left over? We're like, well, this is going to go to pay bills.
I got some business for talking about an 18.4%
Yes.
tax increase, and I talked about it last week as well. And the reality is that 18.4% is the math on
Is
the
it?
20-year note.
Yes,
It's
you
the
are
math.
correct. Well, and on
It's
the
the math.
highest possible interest rate, to be fair,
It was
Okay.
the example given
Which was
by
the-
supporters.
which the supporters of They
Okay.
gave 3 different choices of rates, and you did pick the highest one, which is fine.
I didn't pick it. I just took it from what I was told
Yep.
in a post.
But again,
That's what I
it
did.
could be
From a
as
credible
high as
person.
that, which is again why we want to look at longer term bonds.
Longer term. So let's go to 30 years. So
Which
you go
is
to
Jim
30
Cramer
years?
came out about saying that America should flip away from 2-year, 5-year, and 10-year bonds because it just doesn't make sense. Money's so cheap right now. We don't know what the future will hold with inflation. The opportunity to build a school for a small amount of money, and if Elizabeth is able to get the dual tax rate, which she is working on, and we thank
We'll
so
get
much
to it in the last 5.
Yes,
We're going to get to
exactly.
it. But listen, I got to talk to you. I got to talk to you about that whole thing because even at 30 years, what we had discussed,
Yep.
you're looking at about 9 point some odd percent.
Yeah.
Right? So what we're doing, and I think that we just need to be honest and accurate at what we're asking of people. And what we're asking of people is common sense to me. Spend, and I'm not going to get into semantics over the exact numbers. Spend $49,000 million to fix it. Spend $51 million to replace it. Right? I know the numbers are different than that, but let's just give the
Sure.
people
But again,
an idea of how
having
close
been
it is.
quite involved with this, I can tell you that the main reason we want to build a new school is to use the state's money. One of the
Absolutely.
things I will fight even with the town manager about at this point is we do not do a good job of generating state aid at all. At all. We could do so much better getting actual unallocated resources sent to our town to get new things, and that's why the new
like
school
that.
helps. The new school is
Yeah.
half
Oh,
paid
no.
for by the state of
Yeah.
Massachusetts. Fixing the old school isn't. That's
No, right. So you're going to pay a large sum of money, and you're going to get roughly I don't know. We'll call it 10%. I don't know. They do it 25 years, whatever it may be.
Sure. 9%, 10% is a great
Increase,
number.
right? And then if you do it the other way, your tax increase is the same. Right? So
Absolutely.
there's no real difference in it. So why wouldn't you want new? And that's been kind of my position. Why wouldn't you want new? I mean, I would think that based on that logic, you should think that new would be better. What
And we
are
also
you
pick up
new?
a big
Are you on
building.
new?
I am. I'm not quite there yet to vote for it, but
Yeah, I hear you. I'm a little reluctant. If the vote were held today, I'd be rough.
I would
Yeah.
most certainly be
I've
for
never
it.
I've
Most
never
certainly.
ever voted for a tax increase in my life, so it'd be really hard for me to do so. I might do it. I might do it.
But
I
why-
don't know. I might
Who's
do
to
it.
say we need a tax increase if we actually allowed businesses in town? They were opening, a kennel last night? I heard 3 people say they didn't want in town. If we're so pro-business, why is it when every business comes to town, there's
give 'em such a
5
hard
people
time.
vehemently giving them a hard time?
Yep.
If we're so pro-business, why was there a manufactured anti-cannabis bill that when I asked the town manager, was this rushed, he got passionate about how it was not rushed. And then when we made a point of order to ask the finance committee why they didn't have data, they said they didn't have enough time. So which one is it? I'd love an answer on that from the town.
I think that with the whole
That
cannabis
could pay
thing,
for the school. That
you know,
alone could pay the school's
The cannabis thing. I think that there's a few things we got to look at with it. The reality is that it's legal in Massachusetts. Okay,
Absolutely.
it's legal in this state.
And
all
the
right?
people have spoken in town. The people in town voted for this. When you take a town count, we voted for this as a town when it went to state ballot.
What's interesting on this whole issue is that last night, and I'm going to try to get through this in just a few minutes because I want to get to that. We're going to take over your show, and we need more time, man. I'm sorry. No, I'm just messing with you.
That's a great show. Thank you so much for having us.
No, you're fine. It's good. I'm glad to have you. But what the legislature changed the law that the people in Massachusetts voted on, which they
Yeah.
often do, just like Barbara Anderson just told us. And through that process gave the towns this wiggle room. If the legislature never messed with anything, all right, you'd probably be in a little different situation right now with that law. So if the selectmen just wanted the people's opinion, as we were told last night, that they just want the people's opinion, I would think that they would not have framed it the way that they did, because the way it was
Absolutely.
framed,
Framed as a
was
nay vote.
100%
Yeah.
against it. It was like, so there was no one that said, if you want to do it, where do you want them to be? Where should we zone for them? It was do you want them or do you not want them? So I do have a little bit of a Freedom Network kind of issue with that. The people in the town, I think, did vote for it in a small majority. They voted yes. The people in the state voted for it. I don't
Isn't
know.
that the whole democratic process where if the people
It
say
seems
yes,
to
that
be.
we...
It seems to be.
And the selectmen really, they didn't have any good answers for why this was such a rushed bill.
Well, no,
Not
they-
one person came forward and gave an explanation of why this couldn't have just come up next year.
But I will say one thing. I got to give the finance committee credit, because this was somewhere where they differed. It was not
Absolutely.
unanimous.
It was good for-
What
and
what
good for them.
amazes
Good
me
for
is that
them.
it was only one, I think, or
A
two.
very brave. Two
that
voted
were-
nay. I
that
saw 2
were
stand
nay.
up. 2
But
voted.
let me ask you this question. They're the finance committee. Their sole purpose is to help with revenue and
This
things
could
of this
pay
nature.
for the new bomber
Why
school.
wasn't
This
this
most certainly could
unanimous
pay for the new
for
bomber
it?
school.
Now,
This is
I do get
unbelievable.
that you guys all got into some semantics about the dollars and how this would all shake out.
Sure.
So the dollars and how it would all shake out, I think that both of you and the town had a little bit of a math
Absolutely,
difference.
absolutely.
But don't forget, if a growing company comes in and goes into one of the mills and they do $100 million a year,
We get 3% of that.
But we're
We get
not inherently.
3%.
We'd have to enact a 3% tax, I believe, on
Which
that.
the people would.
Which
The
of course
people
they would. People in this town are
The
good
people
to
would.
good
Yeah.
to raise taxes, I think. But
And where better
But-
to take the money from, though? Where would you rather take it from? Would you
I
rather
don't
take
want
it
to
from
take
your
no.
home,
I don't
from
want
each resident, or
no.
from?
I certainly don't want to do that. I think that it's something that's going to happen. It's going to either happen around us, and other people are going to make it, or it's going to happen here. The unique thing about Northbridge is that as a mill town, as an old mill town, we happen to have the square footage
Absolutely.
to really support some of this stuff. Now, if you go to a wholesale situation, though, I would need more information because
And we would absolutely-
I don't know
that
that you
would
can
be- we'd have-
tax
it'll be a
somebody
vehement discussion would
on
have to happen in
wholesale. I
Oh,
don't
you
think
can.
that the law
Oh, no,
is written
yes,
though
it
that
absolutely
way.
is.
You may
I
have
can
to
say,
change the
no,
law.
The
a little
law
bit.
is absolutely written that there's a 3% on any
On-
part of the process.
on
Any
any
part of the process that
transaction?
happened. No, any part of the process, whether
So-
it's extraction, cultivation, or distribution, or
But
dispensing.
where does the 3% come from?
Off the top, it's paid first.
The top of
Revenue.
What?
It's
revenue.
any revenue.
Okay.
It's
So,
revenue,
I mean,
which
if-
is huge. That's not profit. Even if their company fails and doesn't make money, we as a town get paid first.
Well, if that's factual, then to me that makes a whole lot of sense. Let's see here. This one comes from Dan. Investing in new schools is investing in our children. In turn, it's investing in our future. What
Thank
is
you,
the
Dan.
debate? Is the money more important than our children? Our future, I think, is a no-brainer. To me, and when you couple that with the fact that you're either going to fix the schools and spend this much, or get a new school and spend this much, how do you?
And half of it's paid for by the
right,
state, so
I
you're
don't
actually
get
spending
it.
less to get
I
a
don't
new
get
school.
it. I got like 4 minutes before they'll probably throw me out of here. You want to talk about some kind of dual tax rate? Is that
Yes,
what you wanna
very
talk
quickly,
about?
the dual tax rate, and then if I can bring up something bigger for the future of the town. The dual tax rate, although we do have a tax moratorium, and again, Barbara did that, and excuse me, that the taxes can't be brought up at all by any selectman, town manager, at any time, which is our town is one of the few towns in the valley that has done this, and it's been great up until this point. That now being said, we have two distinctly different occupiers of our town that are not residents that potentially could pay us quite a bit of money, and that's National Grid and Walmart. And we are already in a lawsuit with Walmart for not wanting to pay their tax bill. After all the tax incentives they got to come here, Walmart is now in court with our assessor, Robert Fitzgerald. That money doesn't
Really?
need to go back to Bentonville, Arkansas. It needs to be here for our kids. And the dual tax rate allows us to really raise the rates where they should be for these big businesses. These large businesses should be paying for the new schools. They should be paying for the new roads. They're here. They're driving Walmart is driving all these people into our town.
So you want to raise, and I'm just looking at the interest of time here. You want to raise taxes on businesses, but let's just be fair and say that's not just Walmart and National Grid.
Absolutely.
I mean,
I'm a
you go
business
for
owner in
that.
town. I'm a
You
business
go
owner
for
in
that.
town. Yep.
You're talking about, you're talking about the little businesses
The little
downtown
ones,
that
yep.
barely can survive as it is. What kind
They're
of an
most of them
increase are you
are
looking
tenants.
at?
Those small businesses you talk about. Again, speaking as a business owner myself of CBC
Yeah.
Real Estate and a building owner of 101 Church Street, I can tell you most of the small businesses in town are tenants. We're talking about landlords here. There are also landlords in town that get to enjoy resident tax rates.
Okay, and the only other thing, and I'll give you the last word on this, but the only other thing I'd say is that don't forget that inside of the price of everything that you have, from this computer to this cup to anything that you have, whether I rent the space or not, the same argument for an override that people are going to make, they're going to make back to you and say, well, that's all well and good, but they're going to raise my rent then if you raise my taxes. Do you know of it? I don't know of any landlords that their expenses go up and they don't raise tax rates.
I feel like
rent rates.
people would go elsewhere. One of the things that Northbridge has enjoyed for a long time, and speaking as a building owner, I own 101 Church Street. We make great money here as landlords. We do. Better than Grafton, better than Sutton. And you know what? That's great. That's great for me, personally. However, the town needs stuff, and
So
I don't want
what's-
to sound
what's
simple,
the
but my
amount?
mom told me if I wanted nice things,
What's
I
the
had to pay
amount?
for them when I was a child.
We're in
You
the
want-
a minute and a half here. What's the amount? So you guys
We're
are
talking
thinking
about a 25% shift tax rate, which would save you as a resident would save $90 on average a year. Your taxes would go down right away, and then if the school gets through, your taxes may return to their original level. They may go somewhat higher, but you start $90 ahead. Your family next year gets to enjoy $90 of savings, and yes, Walmart will pay a lot more, but the same percentage that ours, the $90, most of the buildings in town are worth in the same neighborhood as the average home. There's a few huge outliers where there was something created by Robert Fitzgerald, our assessor, and he did point out that, well, if you use a mean, the average commercial building is worth $726,000. As a building owner in town, I don't believe in that at all, and if you take an average, it's much more like 300. So theirs goes up 90, ours goes down 90, and then when we go to build the school, if we have to bring it up at all,
right.
we're right where we need
I
to
got to
be.
get you guys back in it because you're talking about raising taxes, and I need more information. I get what you're saying. You want to split the tax rate. You want to have a separate tax rate for business, commercial,
Yes,
than you do
commercial
for
and
residential.
industrial and personal
All right.
property.
Can I
which is
get you guys
13% of
back
the
in here to
budget. We'd
talk
love to
about
come on
this? I'm
anytime,
sorry
Gary,
if
please.
it was
Thank
just
you. This
a
is great
wild
show.
time. I had a great time. I do have to make room for 3 on 11. They're coming up next. Lord only knows what they're going to talk about, but I guarantee it'll be a good and fun time. I want to thank you so much for
Thank
coming on,
you.
and thank you so much
Jay,
for
all you
coming
do.
on. We'll have these guys back. This is the Freedom Network. Go Freedom!
Thank you.
Because we are the brave. Yes, we are the brave. We'll fight to rename the name of the brave. We are the USA. For those on